Hello and welcome to Pickle TV. I'm your host, Amanda Kowski. If you found our show on Facebook, YouTube, or any other video sharing site, please check out our website at www.pickle.tv. It's the place to find all the videos Gary will record from all the conferences he will attend. If you like the show and these conferences, please tell your friends about Pickle TV. You may also think about subscribing if you really like it. On this episode, I am bringing you the first session from the Dallas Wordpress Meetup group. If you're not familiar with this meetup group, you should really check out their website at meetup.com/dfwwordpress.com. On this episode, I'm bringing you two speakers from the meetup held on September the 22nd, 2012. The first of the two is Doshi, and his session is titled, How I Got Freshly Pressed, What I Learned During the Past 2 Years of Active Blogging. Let's watch it now.
I'm going to give a short talk about 5 things that I got to learn while blogging over the past 30 months. It's a short talk. I just wanted to share things that I learned over the past 30 months so that it helps someone who has just started blogging or someone who already started blogging and it just needs some push. That's it, nothing big. So I'll just get started because this is a short talk and I'll just dive right in. So number one thing that I want to share is that you should know why you are blogging. And this is important because I remember I started a blog 6 years ago and I blogged about future technologies. Then I stopped over 1.5 years. Why? Because then I realized I didn't know why I was blogging. I stopped because I don't know why I was blogging. I thought the energy that I was putting in blogging was I was not getting any returns on it. So that's why I stopped. And I talk to a lot of people and when I say that why do you blog? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, you should know why you're blogging. Let me take it a step further. Now I started blogging and now I know what's my why. I think of my blog as a modern resume. I think it's more powerful than a formal resume or a LinkedIn profile. I think of it that way. And so now I blog about things that I get to learn. And since I know my why, I have kept going. You know, for 30 months I've blogged and it's a wonderful journey. And in fact I just got started and I look forward to learning about how to create great content. And next month whether I should take my WordPress.com blog to WordPress.org. I have tons of things to learn. But this is important. You should know your why you're blogging. Number 2, so this is a video and I'm pretty sure probably some of you might have seen this video. It's a video called Man Cat and this is crazy because the video is a 4-second audio plus video in loop. That's it, 4-second in loop, but still you can see at the bottom it has 82 million views. It got viral. And the lesson here for us bloggers who got started is that you could never know what could go viral. All you could do is focus on creating awesome and crazy stuff and just hope, I'm serious, just hope that your audience likes it and it goes viral. Let me share a couple of examples. So I had a blog post and it got on the front page of WordPress.com and they called it freshly pressed. Honestly, I don't know how it got up there. But the WordPress editors picked it up and I can tell you this, I invested my 100% of energy behind that blog post and it got viral. I read a lot of things, but only few things go viral. And now I realize that you should not care whether your audience will like it or not. All you could care is create awesome and crazy stuff. That's all you could do. That's what I believe. Second example. So I had a blog post, and it was there for 6 months. No one read it. It was like a ghost town there. But somehow, suddenly one day, a blog leader tweeted about it. And that got picked up by a top Microsoft executive. And he happens to have 50,000 followers on Twitter. And then there are like a lot of people coming to the blog and saying, hey, it's a good blog post. I'm like, yeah, thank you. so yeah, great stuff. Exactly, thank you. so that goes on for 4 seconds. That's it, that goes on for 4 seconds. Thank you. So point number 3. So there's an exception here. This is not applicable to someone who blogs for business or someone who already has a community around the blog. This is for someone who does not have a community around the blog and they've just started blogging. Okay. So the point here is that before you start tuning your social media, your SEO and other interesting marketing stuff, you should have few blog posts up there. Like, let me give out a number here. You should have, say, 50 blog posts before you start building a community around that blog post. Let me give you an example. I started blogging, and I used to, don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying that you should not tweet and you should not share your first blog spot. I'm not saying that. You should definitely do that. But what I'm saying is you should not focus on tuning those things before you actually have 50 to 100 blog posts. And so initially all you could do is create 50 to 100 good blog posts and then start tuning all these things, social media, SEO, and guess what? That's eventually going to make or break your blog. So yeah, but initially focus on blogging good content. Next point. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is for everyone who likes Star Wars like me. And you know, Master Yoda speaks like this. He says, "Perfect, no one is." And in fact, this title, it's not perfect, but still we like how Master Yoda speaks. So the point here for bloggers is that whenever you start blogging, initially you'll think that what you're producing is not perfect. But guess what? That's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you go from zero to some place. And I'm not saying my blog posts are perfect. They're far from perfect. But you should have that mindset of constantly changing and going to that direction that's about perfect. So that's my point here. Perfect, no one is. And the last point, I'm pretty sure you cannot see the few people dancing, but just imagine few people dancing there. So the point here is that everyone has a story to tell. Now I was talking to a blog reader. He emailed me that, hey, that's a great blog post. I'm like, okay, thank you. What do you do? He's like, I do SEO, tuning SEO and things like that. Okay, wow, that's really interesting. Do you have a blog? He's like, no, I don't have a blog. That's uninteresting. But you know, there's a ton of people out there who wants to know what you do. But the point here is that he thinks it's uninteresting. You know, we all know that what we do is interesting, but maybe your friend or your friend of friend may think that what they are doing is uninteresting. To tell them that what you do is really interesting, you should share your story, because after all, everyone has a story to tell. And that's about it. That's the 5 things that I've learned. This is the recap. I just want to quickly recap. First point, know your why. Second point, if you want to go wild, just focus on creating awesome and crazy stuff. Third point, focus on writing initially and then focus on tuning your SEO and social media. Point 4, perfect, no one is. And point 5, everyone has a story to tell, and that includes everybody. So that's about it. I'll post these 5 points on the meetup post, because the slides, they're not that important. This is the main thing that I want to share. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed Paris. Now let's watch our second speaker, Kay Byfield, in her session, Creating Great WordPress Content, How to Join the Circus.
So last month, Steve Floyd talked about why you need a content strategy. So this month, I'm going to talk about how to have a content strategy. Paras talked about blogging. I'm going to be a lot more general, although I'm happy in the question and answer to talk about blogging because I really enjoy blogging. I have a few different opinions from his, but in general I agree with him, and the why is certainly a big one. So obviously the whole point of this talk is I'm comparing the economic environment to three-ring circus. Your customers are the audience. You are a performer in one of the rings doing your act. And in addition to doing your act, you've got performers above you in the big top, you've got performers in the other rings, and you've got performers in between the rings. And who knows what's going on in the audience? There may be a really cute kid there. So there's a lot of noise, and you have to find out a way to compete to get the attention of the audience for your act. The other right. Yay! So to get the most from the show, you have to have a ringmaster who directs the action. This is the communicator or the content strategist. The ringmaster is an important director of the action, as well as being a narrator of the circus story. So the ringmaster, or the content strategist, is charged with finding a way to make the different acts or brand stories accessible, relevant, clear, and distinctive. And in a smaller business, the same people wear many hats. So you may have many roles in your business, including creating the content. And this is probably not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you could point out a whole lot of things I should have included, and I just got tired. But this shows you some of the kinds of ways that content is being generated today. And the reason that you need a content strategy is that all of these different communication channels require that you consistently reflect the same fundamental values for your business. So you will present different aspects of yourself depending upon the context, but you should strive to have a unified underlying character, just as you want all the people in your life to see you as the same kind of person, even though your relationships with all of them are different and they see different sides of you. So content becomes accessible when it's easily found. In radio, that's called reach. And by the way, I have a copy of the talk that I can hand out, and if there aren't enough, I'm happy to send them to you. So if you're taking notes avidly, you'll have most of this if you want it. Is that helpful, Aida?
Yes, thank you.
Should have mentioned it sooner. So the question becomes, in terms of accessible, whether your best prospects can know that you're out there and that you have the answers to their needs. This is the responsibility of searchability experts online, and there's many of them in here, not everybody stood up, media buyers, email providers, publishers, distributors, in all different contexts. So any way that we make the content more accessible, we're talking about getting it out to the people that are looking for it. Selecting what to publish in your press release, or which forums are best for where to publish your press release, which forums are best for making contributions. Those are all accessibility decisions. So for instance, a Facebook page may be a great channel for a church. I worked for a church for a while and it was wonderful. But it may be a waste of time for a dry cleaner. A blog might be a really great opportunity for some people, but it may not be useful in your particular business or industry. So as you select your social media or your web content, or whether to use email or whether you're going to do direct mail, John's the king of direct mail. So as you select these things, you are looking for which is the best fit for you and where to make the right connections with the people who will be looking for you. Because you're trying to compete and stand out with all of the competition. Oops, sorry. Content needs to be relevant, and it becomes relevant when it is engaging, meaning interesting, entertaining, empathetic, applicable, of course that means useful, or shareable, where people will pass it along, tell other people about it, make sure that they know because it might be helpful to them. So it's how do we get it out among people in their networks? And the question is whether what you say is interesting, and will the people that are in your audience and that you know should be in your audience be glad they found you? You've got to give them something back if they're going to spend the time looking for you. Just a little sideline here. Humor is a really great way to stand out. It's tricky. If you're a funeral parlor, you might not want to be using a lot of humor. And also, it's difficult for almost anybody to use because it can be so easily misinterpreted. I mean, humor surprises us and it might be misunderstood. So I would suggest before you distribute any message, whether it's humorous or not, let some people look at it and outsiders are a really good choice. I used to be a painter back in the dark ages, and I had my children look at my artwork. They would say, "Why is her arm too long?" Nobody else notices that. So having somebody who is kind of naive can sometimes say, Lisa's shaking her head, can sometimes say the thing that you thought, oh, you should have known. We designed a logo in a business I was with one time, and I happened to show it to a coworker because I was so proud of what we had all come up with. And she pointed out something that could have really been taken badly. Luckily, we had enough time to send it back to the designer. But, so you do want to run it by people. Content becomes clear when it's designed to maximize the understanding of your audience using tone, organization, pacing, your language choices, the grammar, the spelling, the layout, all of those aspects. And the question is whether the way it's presented is going to make it easy for your audience to find you and understand it. So, for instance, on an email, it may be a good idea to put your most important information in the subject line, or at least at the top. Make it clear what this is about. People will appreciate it. They're much more likely to open it. And content becomes distinctive when it attracts attention, as we kind of addressed before. It does that by being different, capital D. In terms of being surprising, provoking, especially pleasing in terms of accessibility, relevance, and clarity, as I said before. So the question is, how do you compare with your competition? All the other acts in the circus are competing for your prospects' attention, and you need to stand out. Why do you think I picked standout communication, right? So when you offer steps that explain how to do things, what the pitfalls might be, give you endorsements from credible sources, or your presentation is clever or surprising in some way, it helps you stand out from all the other noise that's out there. So good content balances your needs, the needs of your audience, and your communication channel, and all three of those are equally important. And I always go back to the communications model because people forget this. And communications are always about having a sender, a medium, and a receiver. And all three aspects are equally important. But where we tend to fall apart is that we forget that it's not about us, and it's about the medium that we're using, and we need to tailor our content to the medium, and we need to make it something that our audience is actually searching for. So you cast yourself as the sender. You're the creator, the producer, the performer in the circus. And you need to know who you are, what makes you different from all the other choices they have out there. You also are using some kind of a channel, and no channel is good for everybody, for a lot of reasons. You may not have the expertise. Thank you. You may not have the expertise. It may be that it's not where the audience that you need to be finding is. They don't use that channel. It may be any number of reasons. It may cost too much. So you need to figure out which channel to use, how best to use it, what are the best practices for that channel, and how to make those decisions, because best practices are best practices in general. They may not apply specifically to you. So look at what channels your competitors are using, look at the content they're doing, look at how it's working for them, and then look for where does your audience go for information, and try to exploit that. The receiver is, in my opinion, the most important part of the communication process. You need to understand who is looking for you. You start there. And what we're talking about is what characteristics do they share? Who are they? What do they want? What are they seeking? And you're looking for sociographic information, psychographics, preferences, those kinds of things. And that includes their location, their age, their personality type, communication preferences, needs, interests, decision-making patterns. And you'll hear communicators talking about doing a psychological profile of the audience that they're trying to see. The bottom line is that creating the best content is about you, which vector, channel, medium, I don't care what word you're using, and especially your intended recipient. So, I'm a writer. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who in your organization is going to create the content? It makes a huge difference. If you're doing it, Gary and I were talking earlier, if you're doing it, then it's different than if you have a professional do it, and what voice they're going to use, and what voice you want them to use. What will your messages be? What are you trying to tell them? What do you want them to take away? When will the content be published? Paras said that he does 10 blog posts a month? I do 1 a week. It's always on Thursday. It's always on Thursday mornings. People who look for me, if they didn't see a blog post on Thursday, I probably would get an email on Friday saying, "Are you okay?" You can set it up on WordPress. So which channels are you going to use? Why? What goals are important? That's where you started. And how can the content be found by the right audiences? The answers to all those questions depend on your expertise, the money that you have, what budget are you working within, what are your goals, and who are the recipients. So effective communication always secures audience interest, as we said, surprising, provoking, pleasing them in some way. Gives the recipients some value, something to learn, a good laugh, a good feeling. This one gets left off a lot. Is open about the purpose, the objective. People don't like bait and switch. People don't like it when you play games with them. They know you wouldn't be doing it if it weren't good for you. You do much better if you're direct and honest about that, but you need to connect what's good for you with what's good for them so that it becomes a win for everyone. And when your content is consistent with the brand identity and medium you're using. So for instance, a manufacturer who is writing and selling to distributors will write content that's going to be more full of specific vocabulary because the people they're selling to understand it. But if you're a retailer, you may not want to be using vocabulary that other people can't really understand. You do not want your content to be inaccessible to the audience that it's intended for. I used to be a college professor. I used to see some really strange things. And the message tone needs to match the content with the audience. Yeah. So when your target customer is unlikely to have attended college, you don't write for somebody that's a college professor. I have college professors on the brain at the moment. So what you need to understand is that different kinds of content need to be more or less dense, and it's important to match the complexity with the objectives of the message. Informal content is very informal, it's casual. Grammar and spelling are less important. And this is the content did I go past? Yeah. This is the content that you find on microblogging, like Twitter and texting and things like that. I'm more likely to be unhappy about how casual something is, however, than I am about it being too formal. I've had this argument with friends that, is it better to be overdressed or underdressed? I personally believe it's better to be overdressed. So you'll have to make those decisions for yourself. But I think if you're too informal, you take two risks. One is you can come off looking unprofessional. And the other is that there can be misunderstandings because the point of grammar and spelling and all of these conventions is for clarity of communication. So you may want to be very careful about that kind of thing. Moderate informality is the most common kind of content that we generate. Newsletters, business mail typically, blog posts typically, publications of all kinds tend to be written in a moderate degree of complexity and difficulty in reading. So that when I wrote a college textbook, I wrote it at an 11th grade high school level because I knew that community college students were going to use it, and that was most likely to be readable to them. Formal content, as I said before, is limited to much more tight audiences. So more dense, challenging content is necessary with specialized audiences because you need greater precision in communicating. Scientific treatises, financial reports, detailed forecasts of probabilities, all of those are the kinds of things that are going to be harder for the average person to read. And that kind of esoteric content is more formal. It's less accessible to a broader audience, but it's important for the audience it's intended for because they need that kind of precision. So let's talk about how all this relates to WordPress, because this is a WordPress meetup, and I just couldn't not include some kind of discussion of that. WordPress, I use WordPress, love WordPress. If I had my druthers, I wouldn't work on anything else, but it really doesn't matter overall. But it allows you to publish content online inexpensively. So it's an ideal platform for websites and blogs. And as templates become more robust, as there are more options and you can customize more, I predict it will be even more widely used. And in addition to all the design functionality, WordPress offers an easy use and robust content management system. And since I'm talking about content, and content management is the key. Unless you like coding, and I don't know much about coding, although I've been in a lot of code trying to figure out where something was, it's really nice having a CMS that's easy to use. Content on websites and blogs is different. If you haven't gotten anything else out of this talk, you should get that content in different places, with different audiences, with different senders, is different from each other. And websites and blogs vary in terms of style, and designing for them is different than other communication media. Most businesses and most individuals probably need to have a website. It's essential for your success. Whether you have a website, a blog, or both, internet inclusion fills a lot of functions. One is credibility. It shows you're legitimate. It shows that you are who you are. And the appearance, the maneuverability, all of those things contribute to the identity that you're generating. The usefulness of your content, and this is really what I'm talking about today, the usefulness of your content to your visitors will impact their buying decisions ultimately. So you need to make sure that the content you're providing is valuable. Whether the page is intended to increase your visibility, authority, or move the visitor along the sales funnel, every page needs to engage your visitor. Not every visitor, not every time, but it needs to have some use for someone. If it isn't getting any traffic, it tells you something. It also needs to have a clear call for action. I'm a marketer. You need to tell people what you want them to do. If you don't tell them what you want them to do, it's pretty unlikely they're going to know what to do because they aren't going to think that far, and they probably won't do anything at all. So you need to be having some kind of actionability. By the way, not every website needs a blog. This is where Paris and I disagree. Not every website needs a blog, and there are some blogs that don't need a website. The decision depends upon your character and your activity and your personality. If in very rare cases, and I do think it's rare, in rare cases if you have very specialized knowledge and you don't sell services directly, you might not want to have a website. You might be happy with a blog and it might be enough for you. For instance, if you're creating time-related content like topical cartoons or news-related short-lived editorials, a blog might be the perfect choice. However, it's not usually the best option for most businesses, but if you're pre-launch, if you're just thinking about whether there might be a business out there, and you're using it as a way to get your head together and to share what your passion is or whatever it happens to be, then it may be a really good place to go. All right. Websites, in general, I hate generalizations, but I make a lot of them. Websites in general maintain a more impersonal stance than a blog does. They have a brochure function. They describe products and services and who we are, how to establish content. Those are minimums on a website. And when e-commerce is possible, websites can include a direct purchase option. So a website establishes the face of your business. A blog, on the other hand, adds dimension to the business brand. It highlights the personality of the brand by offering more subjective or specialized insights about the company, its values, and its expertise. It adds nuance, and it substantiates the assertions the business is making in its descriptions in print and online in a much less direct and self-serving way. So a good blog will avoid advertising, and it'll adopt, as Tony said earlier, a very generous stance by freely providing valuable information and insights to less experienced visitors. Blogs typically offer distinctly original ideas or information, have a consistent point of view, convey a sense of the persona of the business and/or the author, and establish the sender as an authority among competitors. So I know, I have this thing about who, what, where, when, and why. So creating effective content requires that you know who you are, just as Paris said, and what makes you different. And I cannot tell you how many prospective clients I talk to who do not know what they're trying to say and why they're different. Well, it's the bottom line. You need to know who's looking for you. You need to know which channels your customers use. You need to know how to effectively use those channels. If you don't know how to do something and it's too daunting for you, maybe you should go to plan B or C or D or E. I do that often. Or find out how. You need to have the resources to use the channels in terms of time, money, and people. And you need to know who's going to be responsible for planning, creating, maintaining, and measuring the success of your content. So, the bottom line is, good content is essential. Don't do anything you can't do well. Know that you know how to do it, or have somebody who can and that you trust. Only initiate what you can maintain. I see so many people who start a blog, they write 3 posts, and then the blog sits there for a year. Why? You just feel guilty. We all have enough to feel guilty about in our lives. Spend enough time planning. I should put that in all capital letters. I'm angry that I didn't. Plan. Plan before, plan during, plan after, make new plans, adjust your plans. Spend more time planning than you do executing. And tailor your content to your audience and your channels rather than to your own interests. They don't care why you want to go into business. They want to know what you're going to do for them, with them. What's in it for me? So this is the greatest show on earth. It's a circus. We have to draw attention to our act. And the truth is, all the content you create as part of your business needs to be coordinated to maximize the impact. A few years we talked about integrated marketing. I like that word. Other people don't. There's associations with everything, I guess. But it needs to all work together. It doesn't need to be the same. In fact, it should not be the same. The amount of influence that a message will have is determined by whether it reaches the receptive audience and how often. One channel is usually not enough. Use the right channels for you and your audience. Use them to their best benefit and maintain them consistently. Remember that if you're to be effective, it's about the audience and not about you. Give them what they want, when they want it, and make it a good show.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed both speakers on this week's session. Make sure to come back next week for another video session from the Dallas-Fort Worth WordPress Meetup. If you like what Pickle TV is doing, I would ask you to consider dilldomains.com the next time you buy a domain name or website hosting. Dilldomains.com is my daddy's GoDaddy reseller account, plain and simple. So if you like GoDaddy, or if you use GoDaddy, please consider using Dill Domains instead. In other words, buy your GoDaddy stuff from my daddy. Well, that's all for today, so until next week, this is your host, Amanda Kalski, saying goodbye and thanks for watching.